Millions of people download a diet app, punch in their weight, and hand their personal health data over to an algorithm, hoping for a miracle. You plug in a few numbers, and out pops a daily meal plan. But without knowing the underlying math, you are flying blind. Treating these numbers like a magic spell creates a rigid system with no room for error. If you don't know the logic behind the numbers, you have no framework to help you adapt when your schedule shifts. To fix this, we need to pull apart the clinical intake protocol. Whether you are frustrated with your current app or an aspiring fitness professional building a coaching business, understanding this logic is mandatory. This diagram shows the nutrition black box. It begins with raw baseline metrics, a 25-year-old weighing 75 kilograms. That footprint goes into an AI or human black box. Out comes a specific target, 2,700 calories, 150 grams of protein. Zero explanation. If you do not understand exactly how your baseline inputs dictate those macronutrients, you end up actively fighting your own biological realities. This digital intake form shows how professionals tackle the math. Every accurate diet plan starts with a rigid document exactly like this. Accurately reporting those baseline metrics, like a strict 75-kilogram body weight and a 5'10" height, is the non-negotiable first step. Those physical dimensions establish your total daily energy expenditure, or TDEE. That number acts as your metabolic anchor. Every gram of protein, carb, and fat you consume is calculated off that single baseline. As the activity slider moves toward very active, the baseline TDEE calculation inflates heavily for extra movement. But users break this system. People routinely overestimate how much they move, forgetting they sit at a desk for the other 23 hours. That inflated activity input produces an artificially high caloric target. If you eat those extra calories while sitting in an office chair, fat loss becomes mathematically impossible. Predictable biological results require brutal, objective honesty about your daily habits and routine during that initial tracking phase. Once your baseline data is accurate, you have to pick a single direction. Optimizing for maximal muscle gain and total weight loss at the exact same time is a physiological impossibility. This comparison table outlines the exact triggers required for each path. When muscle gain is selected, the algorithm dictates an aggressive intake of 2,700 calories and 150 grams of protein. That caloric surplus forces muscle protein synthesis. Your body requires that excess fuel to repair tissue and sustain heavy sports performance. Hitting targets that large requires selecting high-volume foods. You must consume a heavy rotation of chicken breast, plain white rice, and massive bowls of oats. The trade-off for that growth is accepting unavoidable incidental fat gain. It also requires a higher weekly grocery budget and hours spent meal prepping. When the goal is switched to weight loss, the algorithm triggers an entirely different mathematical reality. The caloric target drops sharply, and food preferences pivot toward low-carb or keto parameters. That strict caloric deficit creates a physical energy shortage. It is a biological instruction forcing your body to consume its own stored adipose tissue to survive. Stripping out the carbohydrates specifically drains the readily available glycogen stored in your muscles and liver. Glycogen depletion feels exactly like this mechanism grinding heavily to a halt. Your primary biological fuel is running dry. The trade-off for fat loss is a direct sacrifice of peak energy. You will endure flat workouts, and you must commit to rigid daily calorie counting to ensure the deficit holds. If you try to mix these inputs, eating heavy for growth while trying to train for fat loss, you end up in recomp purgatory, achieving neither. These macronutrient splits function as explicit biological instructions. They demand specific physical sacrifices, and you cannot have the results of one without the trade-offs of the other. Calculating the math is only half the battle. Next is the daily physical execution of actually consuming those macros through specific meal timing. A user might opt for the constant digestion required to process 5 small meals a day, or they might choose the heavily compressed feeding windows of intermittent fasting. Pairing that aggressive timing with strict app features like an AI meal generator and a daily water tracker automates your routine. The app dictates what and when you consume. This automation overrides your inconsistent natural hunger cues, forcing your body to adopt a highly standardized digestive rhythm. For beginners, there is a psychological danger here. It is easy to become entirely reliant on a digital progress dashboard, completely ignoring your own intuitive signals of fatigue. Adhering perfectly to a scheduled water intake and exact macro timing carries a steep social cost. Spontaneous dinners out are replaced by strict environmental control. Offloading your nutritional decisions to an app creates high predictability. The trade-off is a total loss of social flexibility and a much higher risk of mental burnout. This scorecard summarizes our two paths. Custom meal planning is just mathematical architecture, and the specific goal you choose serves as the foundation. If you are a beginner app user, use this clinical logic to audit your current generated plan. Check the math against your reality. If your selected goal is muscle gain, but the app suggests eating 1,800 calories a day, you know immediately that the algorithm's calculation has failed. Track your inputs religiously. You have to master the math before you earn the right to pivot to intuitive eating. Now, if you are an aspiring creator or fitness professional watching this, your directive is different. Establishing authority on platforms like TikTok and YouTube relies on technical transparency. Posting workout clips is a start, but your audience needs to see the clinical reasoning behind the training. Publicly showcase your rigorous intake protocols. Prove to your audience that your results are calculated based on precise data and specific medical conditions, rather than guessing. Ultimately, the optimal nutrition plan isn't the one with the most complex macro math. It is the one whose trade-offs you are actually willing to live with every single day.